Okay, we are live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. My name is Adrian Daniels, and I'm the head of growth and partnerships at UX Academy. And I would like to welcome all of you this evening, this morning, this afternoon, wherever you are, to the webinar Introduction to Voice and Conversational Design webinar. Before we get started today, just please drop a message in the chat if you can hear me okay, if you can see me okay. Let us know where you're from, what country, what city, what town you're dialing in from. Let me also know why you signed up for today's webinar and what you're looking to get from today's session. Great. Welcome, Monica. Hello from Barcelona. Thank you, Monica. Veronica, greetings from Portland. Thank you for tuning in, Veronica. I can see Markel from Charleston, South Carolina. That's awesome. Thank you. And Natalie says, hi, I hear and see you. Fantastic. Amazing. Amazing. Natalie dialing in from Toronto, Canada. That's amazing. All around the world. We are international here today. And I can see Cecil from London. Thank you for tuning in. Great. So now that we have the countries and towns and cities confirmed, and I can confirm from you guys that you guys can hear me, yeah, then let's get started. Before we bring on Ben, who's going to talk you through UX design today, I'm going to just talk you through a little bit about UX Academy, just for about 5 minutes or so, if that's okay with you. Okay, now without further ado, let's get let me share my screen and let's get started. Absolutely, yeah. Just share my screen. Let's share the screen. Where is it? It's weird, it's not showing up. Okay, you know what? Let's just add it to a tab. Okay, let's do it this way. Okay, so we had a little technical issue, and now we're gonna get started. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so welcome again to the webinar. I'm just gonna tell you a little bit about UX Academy. Hope you guys can see my screen okay. I'm just gonna hopefully make it bigger for you so you guys can see the screen. All right, so who is UX Academy? So we are a team of enthusiasts, designers, engineers, developers, entrepreneurs, startup enthusiasts, and we just love design. We're crazy about UX and UI and the product development whole environment. And UX Academy was established on the back of Mobile UX London, which is a best in practice UX design, UI design, and product development events company, which is based in London, which has been running for a number of years now. Now, during the time that Mobile UX London was running, there was a demand in the tech community, in the UX development product community for upskilling, for training in UX design. And as a result, the birth of UX Academy came about. So you can see in the picture some of our team members from the past Mobile UX London conference. Let's keep it moving. So why should you consider UX Academy? For those of you who are looking to enroll into the voice design course, which we're going to talk about a bit more today. So 6 main reasons. So 100% live online teaching. So since the pandemic in March, we moved all of our training online since last year, 2020, and it's been very successful, and our students have been getting jobs, etc. Real company projects. So you can expect to get involved in real company projects. But for the voice course, we do focus on hypothetical projects because of the nature of the course. You also have an opportunity to get real life mentorship. So there'll be weekly mentorship. You will be assigned a UX mentor and you'll be assigned into your groups. And each week you will be mentored, which we'll discuss a little bit more later on. We have experienced teachers, which I'm going to discuss in just a moment. I'm going to introduce the 2 course instructors, flexible payment options. So whether you're going to pay monthly or you're going to pay upfront or in 2 installments, UX Academy has a payment plan to suit you and your needs. And then finally, you will graduate with a signed course certificate from the founder and from the 2 instructors so that you can show off on LinkedIn, you can show off to your future employer, and you can keep in your portfolio, etc. Now, with UX Academy, we have students that come either from top companies to come and train with us, or they graduate from UX Academy to go on and study at top companies. So I'm sure you can recognize some of the logos on the screen, from Microsoft to Europcar to Amazon to BT to TSB to TransferWise and so on and so forth. All right. Okay, so not much longer now. Now, some of the tools that we use for the voice design course, if you are looking to enroll, we do have Slack, which is used for students and lesson communication between the students and the instructors. We have Google Drive, which is used to share learning resources. We have Figma, which is used for prototyping. May not really need to use that for the voice design course. We have Zoom for, you know what Zoom does, of course, right? Because of the pandemic. Miro is for online whiteboarding, and we have VoiceFlow, which is used for voice prototyping, which you'll learn more about during the course, right? So who can get involved in our voice conversational design course? So pretty much anyone who is a brand new newcomer to the industry, but if you are a UX designer, visual designer, project manager, software developer, business analyst, also known as a BA, some people say BA, script writer, UX enthusiast, these are some popular job titles that make the move into voice or conversational design. All right. Okay, so we have a couple of testimonials from people that have taken our voice course last time. You have Mariam, who says this course covers everything you need to know to start VUI design. Great and experienced instructors, real projects, and a lot more. Highly recommended. I'll give you guys opportunity to learn more of our testimonies by going to our website, myuxacademy.com/testimonials. I don't want to bore you all day long. And these are our course trainers. So you have Ben, who's gonna introduce himself very shortly, and we have Stratus, who is a UX design lead at Condé Nast. That's the company that brings you the likes of GQ, Vogue magazine, Condé Nast, Traveler, and so on and so forth. All right. Okay, so just like to let you guys know that there is a special offer for today for those of you who are interested in enrolling on the voice design course. You can head over to myuxacademy.com/enroll, and you should be able to bag yourself a sweet 10% discount by using the coupon code workshop10. So if you head over there, you'll be able to get that discount, and you will be able to get yourself some money off the course, which will be able to save you some money off the course. So currently the course is £850, but if you use the coupon code workshop10, then you will be able to bag yourself a discount on the course if you're looking to enroll on there. All right. Okay, so that's my 5-10 minute introduction about UX Academy. I did mention that I was going to talk about the UX Academy, what UX Academy is all about, because this is the organization that's bringing you this webinar. So it only makes sense for me to mention a little bit about UX Academy. But now we're going to move on to the content. I'm sure this is the point that this is the moment that you've all been waiting for. So we are now just going to bring Ben up to the stage. So let me just get Ben up, and he's going to talk about voice and conversational design. Okay, while we're just waiting for Ben to join us, if you guys have any comments, feel free to drop them in the chat. If you're listening on YouTube, feel free to submit any questions that we are going to take for the live Q&A. just get them in the chat and we will take them for you. If you're listening on LinkedIn or you're listening on Facebook as well, feel free to get your ideas in the chat as well, or your questions, and then we will be able to answer your questions in the live Q&A, which is taking place today. Okay, so Ben has just told me that he's on StreamYard, but I cannot see him. Let me go and find him and see what he's doing. Just some technical, just a slight technical difficulty. Just trying to get Ben into the stage. Thank you for your patience, guys. Thank you for your patience. Emily says, looking forward to the content. Okay, so we've got Ben now. So I'm just going to add Ben to the stream. How are you doing, Ben? How's it going?
Hi, Adrian. Good to see you. Very well. Hi, everybody.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you, Ben. Thank you very much for joining us. We're just talking about you. Everyone's waiting for you to join. So Ben's just gonna get his slides together. Once again, just to remind you that if you guys have any questions for the Q&A that we will be taking towards the end, feel free to get your questions in the chat, whether you're listening on Facebook, on YouTube, etc., etc. And yeah, if you have any ideas, feel free to get them into the chat in general, and we will be happy to assist you. We've had some new members that have just joined us. Hossein says, has it started? Yes, the webinar has started. I was just talking about UX Academy. Ben, is your slides ready?
Yep.
Okay, if you share them, and I'll add them into the chat, and then I will take myself off. And Matt can Oztalk, I hope I pronounced your name right. He says it has just begun. That's correct. And Daniela Jasmine says, hello, Daniela. Nice speaking to you the other day. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. So I'm just going to remove my slides and add Ben's to the screen, or shall I take it off?
Can you see that?
I can see it. Awesome. So guys, I'm going to catch you on the other end of Ben's presentation, and then we're going to talk about some nice things in the Q&A and then some past student presentations. So Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, welcome everybody to today's webinar on the Conversation Design course. I know that Adrian was just talking about me and I didn't manage to catch it, but in brief, I am a UX designer by trade, and I most recently worked at Babylon Health. I am known in the design community for helping people learn about voice. I created a website called Voice Principles when I realized that it was quite difficult to learn the art of conversation design. I've taught people all over the world in voice design, including NASA. Think I Can Die Happy Now. And yeah, I hope that you come and join on this course and have some fun learning from people like me. Now, I want to just kind of get you into the mindset of conversation design. So I'm going to give you some example learnings about the course today, just so you get some value even from this webinar. I want to start off with a little quiz. I can't see the chat window right now, but I'm going to read this quote and you have to guess when it is, right? So there is only one condition in which we can imagine managers not needing subordinates and masters not needing slaves. This condition would be that each instrument could do its own work at the word of command or by intelligent anticipation. So a little game for you to play with yourself and the others right now is, how old do you think that quote is? So I'll give you a couple of moments. Is it 100 years, 500, 200, 1,000, 5,000, 2,000? Well, here's my reveal. The person that said this was Aristotle. Now, the reason I say this is that people have been dreaming about speaking to machines for a lot longer than we normally think about. We've got Siri and Alexa now, but actually this dream of being able to command machines has been around for a very, very, very long time. But I think, as you know, it's sort of the case in computing that easy things for humans are hard for computers, and hard things for computers are easy for humans. So speaking is very, very hard for computers to both understand us and make sense of what we're saying, or rather understand the words and then make sense of the meaning of them. Now, so this dream has been alive for thousands of years, but I suspect that for a lot of people, voice interfaces today feel a little bit like this. Just feels like kind of messy, right? Very error prone. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to play you a short clip. Let me know if you can hear this. Adrian, do chip in if this sound is not working.
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Cool. So that clip was from a film called Curious Rituals, which it's well worth watching the whole thing. And the kind of idea behind the film is that the future arrives to us a little bit broken. Like, these companies sell us a grand vision of how great our life is going to be, but actually these technologies tend to be wonderful, but just kind of slightly off sometimes. And nowhere is this more true for voice. We've all had experiences like this where a voice interface works like 8 times out of 10, but then those 2 times it's not quite working in the right way. We have to repeat ourselves, and it's annoying because our expectation about how we speak is based on humans, right? And humans are very reliable at understanding each other. Now, what this means for design, given that voice is basically the most kind of error-prone input that we have, is that our true calling as designers is to make the system fail gracefully.
Ben,
Yeah.
it turns out some of the audience couldn't hear the video, even though I could hear it. It was a little bit faint. For the benefit of those who couldn't hear it, I do apologize. Is it possible to replay it?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, yeah. So guys, we're gonna replay. But what we could do is, do you have the actual video file, or is it connected in the presentation?
I've embedded it in this presentation.
Okay. So what we could do is we could just increase the volume as much as possible. And for you, the audience who is listening, if you could just increase the volume as much as possible, you will be able to hear it. Unfortunately, it is embedded in part of Ben's presentation, so you would have to really just listen closely to be able to hear it. So Ben's going to give you another opportunity.
I'm going to give you a voiceover. I'm going to give you the special version where I do the voices.
All right, no worries. All right, then, Ben, take it away. Thank you, guys.
Call Gerardo. Name unknown. Call Gerardo. Name unknown. Call Gerardo. Calling Gerardo. Okay, that's all you really need to see. So, where was I?
Thank you, Ben.
No problem. Thanks for bearing with us, everyone. So I guess the idea is that voice is so error prone that our job really as designers is to think about how these systems should behave when they go wrong. And the reason they'll go wrong is that our sound environment is so messy and complex compared to, screens or, when we're typing on a keyboard. Those are far less error prone modes of input, but sound, it's messy. So our job as designers, our one true calling is to make these systems fail gracefully. What you heard there, where the system repeated name unknown over and over and over again, that was an example of probably, a system that's been created by engineers, and they haven't thought about what it's going to be like in the real world, which is what that film is highlighting. Now, the other thing to bear in mind about voice is that, you've probably heard of these trends like, no screen or no UI. But there's actually this really long-term ambition here, and Aristotle was kind of pointing towards it. Mark Reiser is he's the founder of this idea about ubiquitous computing. And he said, the most profound technologies are those that disappear. They weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they are indistinguishable from it. Again, it's our job as designers to basically open up this world of no UI to people so that they can get their attention back. They can be less focused on screens. So I mentioned before, why is designing a conversation important and why is it hard, right? Well, the biggest conundrum is that it's harder to tell a computer to do something than it is for the computer to do it. I mentioned this before. But also what we need to consider as technologists is that this stuff is growing faster than almost any other technology in history. Believe it or not, smart speaker penetration has been happening faster than even smartphones did. And there's some big forecasts about how this is going to pan out, right? So this is from VoiceBot, which is one of the main websites out there. And you can see here, these estimates are slightly old, but they are roughly on target, that it's going to be that we have an awful lot of speaking devices around us. Now, what that means for us as designers and the services that we're working for is that we'll need to be prepared for this conversational future, or rather this mix of things that we're going to have to design for. In the future, we won't just be designing for screen or mobile only experiences. It's incumbent upon us to really get familiar with these different types of input so that we know when that day comes and our bosses say, let's make a voice experience or let's make a multimodal experience, that we're ready for this growth, because customers are going to expect it from us. Now, this is another important thought about the future of voice, which is that it's going to be multimodal. This is the way Google tends to think about it. So you have this idea of voice only, right? So this is the smart speaker market. Then you've got things like voice forward, meaning you start in voice, but you continue on screen. So those are those enhanced smart speakers with a screen attached to them that you'll often see in people's kitchens. Then there's intermodal, which is on your smartphone. You can actually, with the Google Assistant, jump quite easily between a chat interface and a voice interface. Sometimes you can look away, or if you're driving, you can continue that conversation, but you can revert to it if you need to look at the screen. And then all over on the other side of the spectrum, there's visual only, which is what we're used to designing. Now, the reason I say all this is that although we're going to focus on voice only and voice in its purest form, the truth is the future is multimodal. It is going to be incumbent upon us as designers to understand this mix of interfaces and how they work together. We will touch on that a bit in the course, but we're mostly going to focus on voice only, so you kind of get the pure distilled practice of designing voice on its own. So a little bit about the course. The course is led by me, Ben, and my colleague Stratis, who's got a lot of experience in voice himself. He works at Condé Nast. I'm a freelancer at the moment, so I'm doing lots of stuff like this. Now, what we're going to get you to do throughout this project is a sort of real world example. So we're going to give you the chance to organize into teams. And then on those teams, you will go through each week, which is an 8-week course. And each week you'll learn something new about how to create voice. But you'll be using a real world case study example that you get to choose from a small set of them. So here's an example, right? You would have 6 weeks to design something for Starling Bank. You'll follow the end-to-end design process, and at the end, you'll be able to deliver design artifacts so that you can get certified for launching a voice skill, prototypes of core parts of that experience. We're actually using VoiceFlow, not Invocable anymore, which is the sort of premier product these days. VoiceFlow is really, really fun to use. You'll get a lot out of that. We'll be targeting particular devices. There are some specific, as I mentioned, things that you need to produce in order to launch a voice skill. So you'll get some experience in designing the specifics of those. And most importantly, you'll be able at the end to kind of play back all of the things you've learned and your design throughout its kind of journey to something resembling an end product. So we typically give you a banking example to work with and a travel one and maybe even a couple of other ones. So you'll get the opportunity to sort of decide what you want to focus in on and have quite a broad palette to work in one of those markets. But what's the course like week by week? So week one, we'll cover voice interfaces and Alexa, kind of a broad overview. Week two is really going to be the strategic piece. So this is where we help you figure out, well, what should we build? Like, what use cases? Am I packing for my trip? Am I helping the user to pack the right clothing and to pack the right stuff to go on their trip? Or am I actually helping them book the flight? That's the kind of thing we'll help you work out. So then we'll cover what the sort of nitty-gritty conversation design practice and principles are. And this is really digging into kind of what you need to know in order to design a conversation at the ground level. Then we'll get into prototyping and testing voice interactions. We use VoiceFlow to do that. One thing you should know is that it's incredibly satisfying to prototype things in voice because you can do it much faster than screen with the right tools. Like, you know, with tools to get kind of a prototype working and in front of somebody, it takes a bit of time. With a conversation, you can do that much, much faster. So then we'll talk about some of the things that's important about launching a voice skill and what you need to kind of get it over the edge. And also we'll be talking about sound design. So sound design turns out to be one of the secret ingredients of a lot of voice experiences, whether it's what we call ear cons, as in icons in audio. So little beeps and boops that help the user understand that something's ready or it's finished or it's a positive confirmation, for example. Or like if you're designing games or experiences, brand experiences, then sound design is very important to those. And then week 6, we'll be kind of wrapping up and you'll be finishing with some presentations. So I want to get into some example learning so you get a sense of the kinds of sort of nitty-gritty stuff you're going to learn. So here's just something that I cover in week 2, which is the strategy stuff, the use case workshop. This is something I use a lot with my customers. It's a use case idea workshop. So what we do is we're looking to have a broad think about all the context that a user is in throughout their week or throughout their day. And then we'll start to identify all of the little things that voice might be able to help with throughout that day. So how we do that is that we start to gather context or environments that the person is in. So it might be in the kitchen, getting ready to go to work, or driving to a friend's house. And then we take subject matters. These might be market specific, or in this case, they're very general. So let's take food or appointments or socializing, anything like that. And then we can start to brainstorm things that a voice interface might be able to help with in these situations. So we start to brainstorm tasks. Alexa, what should I buy later for dinner? So we've combined in the kitchen getting ready to work with ideas about food for later. And then we can start to swap these around and generate many more ideas, right? So if I'm in the kitchen getting ready to go to work, but I'm thinking about what my calendar is like or my appointments, I can start to think, Alexa, what's happening next weekend? So the reason we do this is that one of the best things you can do as a voice designer is really, really think hard and dig deep into all the different questions that a voice interface could answer. Because it turns out that the obvious ones are not always the best ones for voice. Actually, if you start to dig deeper, you can find really interesting things that you could help a user with. And so generating as many ideas as we can is really, really important. Don't get stuck on your first idea. Okay, moving on. We'll talk to you about one of the design principles that we find very important in voice, and that's being brief. Again, I hope we can hear the sound successfully during this one. Let me know if not. So I'm going to play you a couple of clips here. Alexa, how many calories are in a banana?
There are varieties of bananas. For example, raw bananas contain 89 calories per 100 grams, 25 calories per ounce, and dehydrated bananas have 3.
Hey, is there any issues?
Calories per ounce. A typical value is 346 calories per 100 grams, 28 calories per ounce. For example, for dehydrated
This
bananas,
Alexa's really going on about bananas here. I hope you can all hear it. So that was definitely a response that was too long when we ask Alexa how many calories are in a banana. Let's have a listen to how Google answers it. Actually, these examples are slightly old. I don't know how well they do with this question. I think these are a year or a year and a half old now. We'll see how Google does with the same one. Google, how many calories are there in a banana?
There are 89 calories in 100 grams of banana.
89 calories in 100 grams of banana. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're asking how many calories are in a banana, you're now thinking, well, how much does a typical banana weigh, right? So it's kind of the right length, but hasn't properly answered the user need, right, in this situation. Now, this is just one example of many of some of the principles that we teach you in voice. But yeah, it's very, very important to kind of figure out what the sort of length the user is expecting or what they can be expected to remember. Now, I want to give you a quick sort of example of rapid prototyping because that is really important in voice. I was in Chicago and I was working with somebody, a friend of mine at Google, and we were discussing this, and I ended up creating a method for prototyping in voice very quickly, and I wrote about it. And the challenge was, could I go from an idea for a voice interface to a test in like under an hour? That was my challenge to myself. I really wanted to make it super fast to go from like a text file full of how I thought the conversation was going to go to like being able to test that with a user super, super, super fast. So I'm going to just very briefly demo the thing that I actually created to help with this. So give me one moment to set up the tool here. Yeah, the full article is at Chatbots Magazine. It's called STFU, how to create and test a voice interface in 1 hour. And I'm just going to load it up so you can see here what I'm doing. Okay, so I hope you can all see this. Now, what you're looking at here is a very, very basic program which you can download called Say Wizard. And what it does is it takes a text file of your early ideas about how the conversation should work. And then what it does is it maps those to keys, right? So each line in the text file is mapped to a key. So if I were to have a test set up with a user, I can basically go from a conversation I've imagined in the text file to actually having that conversation with me as what's called the wizard, right? So I'm going to push buttons and simulate being the machine, but the user will think that they are talking to the machine, not to me. So if I were to ask somebody in a test, okay, you've got to try and record your meeting, the audio of your meeting in this meeting room. So they might say, Alexa, record this meeting. So now I'm going to push the key.
Recording started. How long is your meeting?
Hope you can hear this. I'm the user again. Oh, yeah, it's, I think 1 hour.
1 hour. Okay. Who would you like me to send the recording to?
To me.
What's your full name? Me.
Ben Sauer.
Thanks. Afterwards, I'll send this recording to you.
So I was pushing the keys to be the machine. Now, what's interesting about that is that these responses are not actually what I wrote at first. Through the process of testing this, even at events like this or at conferences or in my teaching sessions, I've actually refined how the machine responds over time based on what people were saying. So what you're trying to do as a voice designer is basically to create this perfect feedback loop between all the random things that a user might say or the things that you missed when you were designing, and then providing the right responses. And by doing this in a text file, we can actually really, really design this very, very rapidly and improve it very, very quickly. Okay, back to my presentation. As I mentioned, what we're mostly going to be doing towards the end of the course is actually taking your design work and putting it into a tool called VoiceFlow. And this is sort of the next level up. If that was the most basic form of prototyping, what I just showed you, this is kind of high fidelity prototyping. It's still very rapid. You can do it very quickly. And the really, really cool thing here, you can see that button there, upload to Alexa, is that while you're working on it, while you're changing the design, it will actually, it can even do it automatically now. It will upload that whole conversation to Alexa, and you can just set up your Alexa next to you and actually test how that conversation works in real time, either with yourself as a designer or even with users who might be in another room or testing it somewhere. So voice is an incredibly satisfying thing to prototype, because not only can you sort of test your ideas really, really quickly, but you can have it operating at a very high fidelity very quickly too. Okay, that's it from me. I just want to say it's going to be super fun to get out of your headspace. Maybe you're a designer or an engineer who wants to kind of do something different. This is a really, really fun and interesting and satisfying medium to play with. And I hope you have lots of fun on the course. I'm going to leave it there, and we'll jump back and open the course for questions. So come join us.
Thank you very much, Ben, for taking us through that session. I hope you guys enjoyed that short presentation on voice design, and I'm sure you have a better idea of what's involved in voice and conversational design as a whole. Now, before we go into the Q&A, I just wanted to play one of our past student presentations, okay? The first one's going to come from Team BA, who did do a live voice presentation. So I wanted you guys to have a taster into what it's like into actually being part of the course and having something at the end of the course. So I'm just gonna show that to you guys just before we go into the Q&A. So hope you guys enjoy. Okay. All right, just give me a second, just a moment. Yeah. There we go.
So we're Team BA. I'm a UX designer, and
yeah, I'm kind of a product strategist.
So this was our brief. It was looking at British Airways has realised the potential of using a voice user interface to remove the friction from their customers' experience, and is planning to develop an Alexa skill. And the two features we were to look at was the ability to check the status of their booked flight and the ability to check for the cheapest flight to a destination.
So kind of in general, to summarise sort of everything that we discovered from doing the research, and then also a little bit from looking at competitors, which we'll show in a minute. We kind of both wanted to make managing your flights easier, so things that you already had booked, and kind of quickly discovering new destinations. Like when you're trying to discover a new destination, or when we were trying to get someone to search for a specific destination, it's like too much information necessary for a voice experience. Sort of booking, for example, we thought was not appropriate, so we didn't go near that. So this is kind of what we took on board for choosing what we created in our skill.
So we took some of our insights and research in that and created a user persona. Our user persona is somebody who has family who lives abroad, so she travels a lot throughout the year. So she has regular flights, but she also has some disposable income that she likes to use to go and spend on a bigger holiday. So she likes to find new and exciting places to travel that she's not been to. We then did a user journey map to see how a user would sort of discover the skill and their first experience of setting it up. And this really started to point out to us at this stage how complex it would be to try and find a very specific flight. If you're having to say the destination, what class of flight you want to go to, when you want to come back, all of that information created this really long journey. And so it sort of guided us from this point. How can we condense this into a much smaller, quicker experience?
We then kind of looked at a few of the competitors, and then EasyJet's one is actually just about the kind of checking your status. In general, this sort of whilst we have tried to cover a lot, we try to think how can we make it simpler in each stage.
Now to go through a little bit of our user flows. This is just sort of like the basic launch intent, going into a welcome message and the different actions you can give. This was initial flow that we removed from the end prototype, but actually when we started prototyping this and testing it, it just felt like a really long process that people would just go back to using a visual interface because they could check the price differences across days and things like that. So we kind of felt that this was turning out not to be a good use case. We did like a pure discover a flight. So it's looking at how can we get like our user persona, somebody who's just sat with their friends and they want to know somewhere new they could go and roughly how much it would cost them. This is like a mock-up of what our skill would look like in the App Store.
And we said it makes managing flights easier with hands-free updates and information on your upcoming flights and flights saved in your account, and get notifications when prices change or quickly find out how much baggage allowance you have on your next flight.
So this is a video of one of the prototype of discovering a flight working.
Open Discover VA.
Welcome to British Airways. Would you like to hear the status of your flight or discover a new flight?
Discover a new flight.
Okay, what type of holiday would you like?
City break.
Okay, when would you like to go?
Beginning of September.
And for how long?
4 days.
Okay, I found several flights. The cheapest is £271.
The actual very end of the skill was the hardest bit to write the script for because it was a lot of information to convey. We had to kind of adjust the way the script was so you could understand from the slightly robotic voice. We were before saying AM and PM on the times, and that made it feel very unnatural and very awkward to remember the information, and actually changing it to say in the morning and in the evening made it clearer, although it was slightly longer.
As we said, we kind of went light on a few things, but we thought, maybe looking more into the notification side of it for sort of saved flights, or even for you have a flight tomorrow, looking into the ability to check in through the skill. In general, further sort of testing and iteration on what we've created so far, given that some of the things kind of were late entrants. And that was it.
Thanks.
Hope you guys all enjoy that. This is one of our past students doing a presentation on their group project on British Airways, aka BA. So it's time to move on to the Q&A session. So if you guys have any questions regarding voice design, conversational design, the course, for Ben, for myself, this is your opportunity to get your questions in. While we're waiting for you guys to get some of your new questions in, we're going to go through the chat and see what previous questions have come in. Okay, Adrian says, will we also learn these voice acting skills in the class? I don't think you will learn those voice acting skills in the class. I think Ben was just improvising because you couldn't hear the voice interaction earlier on from Ben. Yeah, okay. And then SF has a question, Ben, just to mention you're on mute. Okay, you've unmuted yourself now. Is a VUI designer responsible for aircons? What programs would we use for this?
In general, voice designers do not necessarily create the aircons themselves, no. But what they would be able to do is to identify when they're needed. And then you might, for example, go to a library. You can download some standard sounds. Or often, with some of the organizations I work with, we'll actually commission sound design work, in the same way that you would for like an advert or a short film. What's important as a designer is that you know when it's necessary and the kinds of things that you should be looking out for. So that's what we're going to cover in week 4, I think. Yeah. Perfect.
Awesome. Okay, let's move on to the next question. Snehal Mayaka, I hope I've pronounced your name well. He or she says, what's the eligibility to enter the field apart from the course certification? Yeah, there is no real eligibility. I mean, this course is suitable for beginners, all right? But as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, if you did catch at the beginning, there are certain people who have certain job titles, such as UX designers, project managers, business analysts, etc., who who can make the transition into voice design a lot easier because they have, certain transferable skills and they already have an existing background, which will make it easier. But in terms of learning voice conversational design, anyone can come from having no relevant background and get into the field. Did you want to add anything else to that, Ben?
Not really. I mean, it helps. Almost anyone can join the course, but obviously it helps if you have some basic grounding in UX, because the course is going to cover some UX things. And so, very often this will be UX people or people who work close to UX taking this course and applying some of the skills they've learned elsewhere in a new domain. And just on that, it's very accessible to people who've got a bit of a sense of UX or consider it important, right? Voice isn't about learning something completely new from the ground up. It's about applying lots of the things that you know already in a new field.
Perfect. I couldn't have said it any better, Ben. Thank you. All right, let's move on to the next question. I've seen there's a few more questions that's come in. Keep getting your questions in, guys. We do have a bit more time left to answer some questions. Robert Renteria asks, what is one or a couple of the biggest tips for designers coming from traditional product design work into voice conversational design work? I'm sure that's a cracking question you can tuck into, Ben. Because you're a product man. I know you're a product man as well.
I am. Yeah, thank you. Well, there's so much to say here, and we're going to cover lots of it in the course. But what I would say is you can't create good conversations unless you're having them. So it's really important, as I showed you with the prototyping or with these early usability or prototyping sessions, that you actually go through the process of figuring out, what does a good conversation feel like? What are the words? How does it feel to people? So I'm always encouraging designers to basically try their scripts out with people, and we do this through a process called table reads, where you just write down how you think the conversation is going to go, grab your script and try to have it with somebody, So that's one of the main things, and it's actually that's one of the areas where it's quite different coming from product or design, is that you can really get kind of into the acting out of the conversation in order to learn about it.
Thank you, Ben. Thanks very much. Let's move on to the next one. There's a few more questions come in. SF asked the question earlier on. He's followed up with another one. Thank you. Are VUI designers responsible for prototyping, testing in multiple languages?
Oh, this is a big rabbit hole. Generally, no. Most voice experiences are designed with a target language in mind. I have designed things in English, Dutch, and French. You can probably guess which country needed all three of those. Yeah, it's very, very difficult to maintain consistency across those things. It's an emergent practice, but in general, you don't have to worry about it, especially with the first few things you design.
Thank you, Ben. We have a question from Veronica. Thank you, Veronica. She says, are there additional design principles related to the word choice and or syntax when designing conversations? And is this explored in the course?
Oh, it's very much explored, yes. There's lots of principles. Go to my website, voiceprinciples.com, if you want to read about lots of them. But let me just give you one example. A typical activity that we'll do is to say, right, a user asks this question, like, what time is this train? Okay. And typically as designers, we'll front load that information in the response. So we'll say, the next train is at 7:30 and it's from blah, 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 blah. Well, it turns out that if you want a user to walk away with the right information, you have to put that information at the end of the sentence. People in radio actually learned this decades ago. So if we're talking about word order or syntax, if there's one thing in the sentence that you really want your user to remember, you try to put it at the end so that that's the thing they walk away from the conversation with. That's just one of many tips.
Thank you, Ben. Incredible. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, a few more questions coming in. I think once we've probably finished off these round of questions, we'll probably start to wrap up after these ones. Mertkan has a very long-winded question. Let's see if we can decipher this one. I read some studies. Language is not a bunch of words coming together. It actually establishes a way of thinking, how we see the world, right? Conversational designer, how do we deal with multi-language products? I think that's covered in the course as well, Ben, isn't it?
Merkian,
To an extent.
thank you. This is an amazing question. I'm just going to point to these posters at the back. Can you see this circle here? So you're talking about something that they call in academia the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. It's the idea that language shapes thoughts. There is a movie, a science fiction movie, all about that idea. You should watch it. It's called Arrival. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and that is an image from the movie. I love your question. We may skim on that, and we're not going to talk about it too deeply, but if you do join the course, I'll be happy to give you my thoughts on it.
Thank you very much. We have to keep it moving now. I see he's followed up with some comments, but we do have to keep it moving because of time. It's more available in the course. Okay. SF says, the VUI I've seen has a limited depth of conversation. Perhaps you could give examples of more involved VUI, or is this an inherent limitation of voice?
It is one of the major limitations of voice. So very complex conversations with a lot of conditions in them tend to become very error prone, right? So users get very impatient with them when they enter into a long conversation, and for example, it breaks at the end when they're just getting ready to sort of finish. So we're going to teach you lots of the skills that you need to have longer conversations, but in general, I advise designers to try to limit the length of the conversations that they choose to work on. I'll give you an example of this. I worked in the medical field, and there was a team that I joined after they designed something, and the conversation they designed in testing was actually longer than the conversations that they were having with doctors, that a patient would normally have with doctors. And so we had to reject the idea on the basis of its length. So yeah, it's quite a difficult thing, but as long as when you know the grounding principles, you'll start to understand what it takes to create a longer conversation should it be necessary.
Thank you very much, Ben. Let's take the last couple of questions. So Robert has followed up with a question. What are the primary tools that will be good for us to become familiar with? We did cover some of these. Ben, did you want to add to this?
Not really. Most of the sort of active learning will be done in Miro. So, have a play with Miro. It's just a great tool for sort of running workshops on whiteboarding, but it's really not very difficult to learn. And the only other tool, which you will also have time to learn during the course, is something called Voice Flow. So if you were like super keen students, you could start playing around with a Voice Flow trial today if you wanted to.
That's correct. If you missed the beginning of the presentation, Robert, I do talk about some of the tools that we do use. So you can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can go backwards in the video and see what we discussed. All right, let's move on to the last couple of questions. What do we have? Make sure I'm not sharing the same question again. Okay. So we have a question from Anthony. He says, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in both the voice UX as well as the industrial physical design of voice products? Do these two develop ideas together or separately?
We are not going to cover the design of the voice assistants themselves. So smart speakers is not something that the design of them itself is not something we're going to cover on this course. So mostly, as far as I know from friends and so on at Amazon, these practices are generally dealt with separately, although there is obviously a point if you work for a large company like that when those two things need to come together and both things need to make sense to a user. But in this course, no, we're not going to cover that.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ben. I believe that's pretty much it for the Q&A session. We've gone through all the questions, which is great. I don't think I've skipped any. So yeah, unless there's a real burning question, thank you, everyone. That's the Q&A session over. We're now going to kind of move on to the final segment of the presentation. And what we're going to do is just going to kind of wrap up with quickly another video from the past students that we have. This one is actually from Team Monzo. So I'll let you guys take a look at this one. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to end this live webinar just talking a little bit more about what you guys can expect for those of you that are interested in the course. But feel free to stick around for this one last video from our past alumni. Thank you guys for sticking around so far.
Hello, so I'm Chris, I'm a UX designer.
Hi, I'm Josie, I'm also a UX designer.
And I'm Junior, I'm a UX designer as well.
So, we were the Monzo team, and this is the problem statement. Can we remove friction from their customer experience by using Voice UI? And there's two things we're going to try and do. So users are able to check their balance and send money to their contacts. So we're going to talk through a design process we went through. So the first thing is we found 4 people that are Monzo users. But the interesting thing about them all is that they're all very tech savvy, and it was all about the ease of things. So ease of checking their balance, ease of paying contacts. Interviewed these 4 people, asked them lots of questions. These are some of the kind of headline statements. And from that we developed a couple of personas. Something that a lot of them were doing is, before any event, it was kind of like, well, I'm going to check my balance. So before going out, before buying something. So it's that kind of on the move idea and just being the immediate of checking stuff. And then another aspect of it was the categorization of spending. And that also then informs the Alexa persona as well.
We wanted to try to get the attitudes that would help us inform the system personas. So some of the things that we got out of it was trustworthiness, confidence, honesty, friendliness. So we created a customer journey map. We wanted to tease out what the touch points were.
So here's some of the initial scripts. So we're talking about paying contact, paying somebody for the first time. These are just a few of them, but they're the ones that we started scripting out, and this is an example. This is a screen grab of our whole app, essentially, at the moment. You add something, and then you test it, and then you add a bit more, and then test it again.
We're building up storyline for both of the intents, pay balance and pay contacts.
We're into the user flows then. So here's an example. This is just a sample of one of them, but we've also got a load that we've done, including PIN and pay contact.
As Chris said, those flows in storyline, we sort of iterated those, and we had a sort of final sort of prototype that we uploaded onto the Echo Dot. We tested the invocation request, check balance, and pay contacts 2 types. Thanks to Zara, we sort of wrote a discussion guide, and our sort of key observation points were navigation, processability, is it useful, is it succinct enough, and appropriate, is it relevant? Positive insights were all users were able to complete the task. The tone of voice, the Monzo users, it met their expectations. And general feedback was, Monzo users, obviously there are 3 key features they use, and top up would have been one they would like. We added additional invocation utterances. The other thing is the channel, the open channel. We tested sort of opening it and sort of included that in the flows.
Hi there, welcome to Monzo. You can check your balance, top up your balance or pay a contact. What would you like to do?
Pay a contact.
Okay, who would you like to pay?
John Dory.
How much do you want to pay John Dory?
£25.
Do you want to make the payment now?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to pay John Dory £25 now, is that right?
Yes.
All done. You have just paid John Dory £25.
The next steps need to work out the PIN.
The other one is where the sort of multimodal would provide a sort of an enhanced experience.
In terms of the recommendations, I think send emojis, and then support third key for Monzo users top up.
That's it.
I'm on mute, sorry. Okay, so there you have it. That was some of our past students doing their presentations. So yeah, just before I start to close off with the final quick session, I'd just like to thank Ben for joining me today on this voice conversational design webinar. I hope you guys all got some great value from this.
Thank you, Adrian. Yeah, I hope to meet some of you on the course, and yeah, just to say sorry for any sound issues. We had some teething problems there, but yeah, hope to see some of you. I'm gonna leave. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Ben. Cheers. Take care. All right. So just to close off, once for those of you that missed the beginning of the presentation, we talked a little bit about who UX Academy is and what makes us special. So yeah, why, if you're looking to study the course, why should you look at UX Academy? All right. So all our courses are 6 weeks live lectures with interactive exercises. We use Zoom breakout rooms, Miro, Figma, VoiceFlow, the whole lot. We've since March 2020 last year, we've had more than 100, well over 100 students graduate with us since the pandemic started, and they've gone into different jobs. They've had promotions, they've had internships. The list goes on and on and on. It's only 1 week, one evening a week for those of you in the UK. If you're outside of the UK, it might be a different time zone. So it can fit around your busy full-time working or study schedule. Pandemic proof. You will graduate with a professional portfolio and become job ready to enter those entry-level roles. You will have the opportunity to work in teams and build those essential team working skills and access tutors, your CV, portfolio, and career support. And you also get access to mentorship and post-course work placements and networking opportunities. So there's a lot to look forward to at UX Academy. Here's an interview I did with Zarina, one of our students that bagged a job recently. For those of you interested in that, you will be sent a link round if you wanted to watch that. And a little bit about how mentorship works in the course. It runs once a week in your groups, and it's designed for you to discuss UX voice design live, to overcome any challenges on the project. If you have any questions in general about your career, that's also the purpose of mentorship. And if you wanted to get any assistance with some of the tools you're using on the course, or to tackle any of the methodologies, that's also the purpose behind mentorship. For those of you that stay to the end, this is our free gift to you. So just as Ben mentioned before, you can head over to voiceprinciples.com. It's a nice one-page website where you'll be able to get access to information regarding voice platforms, books, articles, and links and notes regarding voice design and conversational design. So make sure you head over to voiceprinciples.com. We'll put a link on the chat as well, so you can take a look at that. And yeah, for those of you that want to enroll into the course, just head over to myuxacademy.com /enroll, or just head over to our website and you can bag yourself a 10% discount when you're checking out with a deposit. Just use the Workshop 10 coupon code, and then the rest of the discount will be applied on the second final payment of the course when paying. So I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today on the course, on the webinar, and hopefully we'll see some of you on the course. If you have any questions, if we weren't able to answer anything, feel free to get in touch with me, Adrian at myuxacademy.com, and we'll be happy to help you. And yeah, this video is available on YouTube to watch all over again from the start. So for those of you that just joined us late or couldn't stay to the very end, feel free to watch right from the very start. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy that. And yeah, take care, everyone. Bye-bye. Cheers.